Unacceptable. Like, just straight up unacceptable. We have 3 more studio shutdowns, and many of these games were extremely lucrative, right? If we're looking at it from a business point of view, many of these games were very lucrative, but were plagued by awful business decisions. Each and every single one of them. This is some of the most undeserved shutdowns we've seen in industry history, in my opinion. And especially when you look at WB, a prominent entertainment company, for someone who's been around so long in entertainment, I don't know how you can be this bad at it. Between film and games, I don't get how you can be this bad at it. It's actually stunning to watch a company with this much IP waltz into gaming. Batman, every DC superhero, sorry, but Batman. You got Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, Mortal Kombat. You can stroll down the street just handing out these IP and raking money without ever creating one meaningful thing in your corporate life. That is all you needed to do here. And you still found a way to bumble it completely to the point where studios who were making great things, who had great ideas, who moved the industry forward, and by the way, made profitable video games, get shut down. Unfucking real. Unfucking real. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, consider that your warning. If you got young ones around, Sailor Mouth Matty's out, and he's about. So we're going to talk about 3 studios that got shut down by WB Games today. Funny enough, we just covered them in a video a couple of weeks ago. And in that video, I said, pay attention to them. Why did I say that? I said, yeah, look, I get it. Like the YouTube titles and everything. It's really sexy to shit on Ubisoft. It's really sexy to shit on BioWare. I get it. I see where the viewership is. But WB Games absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, was the most floundering games division at that time. 100%. The $400 million in the hole is like unbelievable to me. When you take Rocksteady, turn them into a live service developer, you look at the flop that Multiversus version 2 was, and then on top of all of that, you cancel a bunch of games from WB Games Montreal, and then you reset development on Wonder Woman, and you're another $100 million in the hole. What the fuck, man? Unbelievable. Let's read this report from Jason Schreier of Bloomberg, who has broken the news. He writes, Warner Bros. Discovery Inc. is closing 3 video game studios and halting work on a highly anticipated Wonder Woman title in a bid to boost the profitability of its interactive entertainment business. Monolith Productions, Player First Games, and Warner Bros. Games San Diego are being shuttered, according to a memo to staff viewed by Bloomberg News. The cuts reflect a refocusing of the games division on major franchises such as Harry Potter, Mortal Kombat, Game of Thrones, and DC Comics, primarily Batman. Okay, let's talk about the studios first, for those who are not well-versed with these teams, okay? WB Games San Diego will be the least talked about, but they're a support team that helped out Player First Games. But the main talk of this story will be around Monolith Productions, and rightfully so. They've been around since 1994, and they've made a plethora of fantastic games. But for me, what sticks out in my head, and I can at least speak personally to, is Fear. Fear is an amazing horror FPS title. But then you also have the Middle-earth Shadow series, right? Shadow of Mordor was industry-shattering because you had the Nemesis system introduced there, which, by the way, guess what's patented? Let this thing fucking go, dude. Please. The last thing we need is WB to take down into their grave that system. That is like the one good thing that they gave birth to. The Nemesis system is super unique, gives you dynamic interactions with enemies in the open world map, and lets you craft your own stories. Very few new imaginative systems are introduced in gaming nowadays, and this is why patenting them is a bad idea. Whether your business goes down or just the lack of innovation that comes from it, that walled garden does not work, and we're seeing it happen in real time. I am very curious what happens to that system. But besides all of that, you had Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor. Really industry changing. Sure, it had like a Ubisoft open world formula, but that new system really set it apart. Combine that with free flow combat, decapitation, great abilities. What an awesome game. Shadow of War rolls around, right? Shadow of War is great now, but when it first launched, loot boxes, get your randomized orcs here, y'all. Go invade a fortress with your best loot drops, y'all. Yeah, and it wasn't until like 9 months after the game came out, as I covered in that WB Games video, that they pulled the loot boxes out of the game. That was a from the top down decision. That came from WB into Monolith, and it contaminated the whole game. All right? This will not be the first time we talk about this sort of situation. From there, that was 2017. We would never see Monolith again. No one knew when that game came out that would be their final game. And what a sad way to go out. Poisoned by WB. And then they had to go work on a Wonder Woman game, which I know in this article says highly anticipated. I mean, look, I'm open-minded to it, but I was interested in how do you mix Wonder Woman with the Nemesis system? And then we learned in that original Jason Schreier report that they were actually going to pursue a more action-adventure title for Wonder Woman and not do the Nemesis system at all. What a fucking dumb idea. I'm sorry, dude. But like, that is the defining feature for Monolith now, and you walk away from it? No way. Not only did WB poison and then shut down an extremely lucrative team that made popular open world games and worked well with big IP. Then Player First is easily the most tragic of them all because it was their first game in multiverses and you couldn't have drawn it up better. Here comes a Smash Bros competitor, has its own identity in 2v2 style gameplay. It's got the roster that you know and love, everything from Shaggy to LeBron James to characters from Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings. As I mentioned earlier, WB has this IP library and they pulled from it for this game and they made something really good. Hundreds of thousands of players, people spending money, they're excited. And best of all, you know you've got a hit when people are speculating about your roster and doing data mining leaks for the upcoming roster. I can only think of two franchises who get that sort of treatment. People try to do that for Smash Bros. And of course, most recently, Marvel Rivals. If you're in that company, you're doing something really well. Player First Games has a viral hit on their hands. What does WB do? They call it a beta and they pull it from the market. Seriously. What fucking idiot does that, bro? Really? Who called that shot? That was the worst decision that game could have, any game possibly. Because when you have that zeitgeist, anyone in business, anyone in entertainment knows you cannot catch lightning in a bottle twice. You can't. You can build off that lightning, but you cannot catch it twice. You can recover from that, but you cannot catch it twice. The only example I can think of, maybe that caught it twice, Cyberpunk. Very rare exception, where the anime just hit at the right time, where the updates were pouring in, and it had a recovery process, and then the perfect ending of that story was Phantom Liberty. But otherwise, Player First Games, right? We look at that situation there, you're like, okay, stupid business decision, Matty, but tragic enough, not that tragic. Here's the great part, right? And by great, I mean like sarcastically. They buy this team 8 months ago. 8 months ago. And shut them down. Like, by the way, before all of this, they relaunched Multiverses, and of course it flopped. Because you took it away in its best moment. And didn't let it grow into something before just ripping it off the market and trying, hey, it's a beta, y'all. We're going to figure it out now. It's going to come back better than ever. No, it's not. No, it's not. Who convinced themselves this was a great idea? Probably the same person who convinced themselves that was a great idea to turn Rocksteady into a live service studio. Probably that same person. So they bring it back. It understandably flops. I don't blame Player First for it. Apparently Multiverses 2.0, we'll call it, was still good. But it didn't have the zeitgeist. Look, that is a big part of this industry, like it or not. The conversation fuels the player base. People want to be part of the next big wave. You pulled it from the wave. It failed. They shut down support for it. I'm like, okay, what are they going to do next? And they shut them down. Like, after they bought them, and just 8 months later, now you didn't even get a year of shelf life. That's crazy. And now they're going to refocus on safe. Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, years after its relevance. You know when a good time for Game of Thrones video games were? Like the mid-2010s, when the show was popping off. Maybe pre-season 8. That was a good time for Game of Thrones. But now we're going to do a Game of Thrones game? That's what we're going to do? Get ready to read this statement from their head of games and streaming. It's funny to me. The quality of too many of our new releases has really missed the mark. JB Perret, head of games and streaming for Warner Bros., wrote in the memo. We need to make some substantial changes to our portfolio/team structure if we are to commit the necessary resources to get back to a fewer but bigger franchises strategy. So what does this set up now? This sets up all or nothing projects all over the board. So if you're WB Games Montreal, you better perform. If you're Rocksteady, you better perform. Like these companies now, if you're NetherRealm, you better perform. There is no, we have fallback options anymore. You've got to perform. We're in the business of making big hits. This has such Take-Two energy, but at least Take-Two has like an NBA 2K, a GTA, a Mafia. Like they have the things that can back it up. But when you look at WB and the quality of their output, Lego games are scarcely seen now. I'm like, who are you kidding yourself that all of a sudden you're going to think by trying to do less that you're going to provide more? Here, I'm going to give you a freebie here. I'm going to give you a freebie on how you fix your business. You Get the fuck out. Go. You get the fuck out, and guess what you do? You do what Marvel did, because Marvel was deeply involved in putting out shit like the MCU games. Here's your Iron Man game. Here's your Thor game. Here's your Captain America game. And they all fucking suck, dude. And guess what happened? They realized that they were putting out products that were underwhelming. Oh, the Amazing Spider-Man games, at least the first one was decent. Second one was one of the worst games I've ever played. So they go through all of that, and they realize, hey, you know what? We're not good at this. Let's go and license our IP out to talented studios. Then guess what happens? Eidos Montreal makes Guardians of the Galaxy. Okay, Maddie, that one didn't do that well financially. Spider-Man, what, like 30 plus million copies sold, I think the first one did? That's absurd. And I know with licensing fees and stuff, you know, maybe it wasn't as profitable as people thought it may be, but ladies and gentlemen, this is what WB needs to do. You go, you maybe hand your IP to the teams that remain, but you go and you let people who actually know the entertainment business, if your films in their direction as well. I mean, we paid attention during the Justice League era, right? We paid attention during that era, right? We knew what happened there, right? And it's happening in their gaming division. Now, the president, David Haddad, as I covered in that video about the AAA nosedive, had already left WB by this point in time. So a lot of people were blaming Zaslav. I don't know if that's fully the case. I think Haddad, who was the overseer of the gaming division, is more to blame in this case. In a statement to Bloomberg, a spokesperson for WB Games said the shutdown was not a reflection of the teams or the talent that consists within them. We've heard this a million times before. And then, last but not least, current and former employees blamed the weak slate of indecisiveness and a lack of vision under President David Haddad, who stepped down in January. So, as I said there is your finger point for the video. Who do you blame? This individual who turned Suicide Squad into a live service game, who let multiverses get ripped off the market and put, which is, again, just, you want to talk about indecisiveness? Right there. Living, breathing example. Right there. Clear as day. Wonder Woman game, after you had two really successful Middle-earth games. I don't know how involved Monolith was in that decision, so I don't want to fully finger point on that one, but this definitely feels a little bit like a reach of, hey, you know, imagine if with all this tech, you made something that was even more popular, which I'm like, how do you get more popular in Middle-earth? I don't know, but I'm just speculating. I'm spitballing here. At the end of it all, I got to take a breath here. At the end of it all, you just lose a lot of great talent, man. Again, I sound like a fucking broken record, and I'm sorry, but like, it's still true. Like, you're stepping into the industry. What does this tell you? That these big corps don't know ball, man. I was talking about it in my Patreon Discord. I was like, I think a lot of this comes down to, like, yeah, it's always going to be a tough business. You know, even indies, they have it tough, no doubt about it. But why don't you see indies collapsing? It's because we don't take on these gargantuan all or nothing projects. And because the people who are typically running the independent side of the business are passionate creatives who get what gamers are looking for and when they're trying to find it. We can't have these projects of fewer but bigger releases. Okay, WB, see you once every half a decade. That's worked for every other studio in the games industry thus far. You know, that is why the indie business is thriving in a lot of ways, because they're delivering more regularly, more consistently, while AAA just is losing tons of talent. And as I've said before, what does this say to the kid who's in college studying game design, programming, art even? What does this tell them? It tells them to pivot, to go the other direction, because not everyone's going to have, and I don't mean this as a gloat, just to be very clear, not everyone's going to have a situation like me where we can spin things up individually on our own, kind of set our own standards, our own rules, get a project off the ground, get a nice team surrounding it, set our own standards, and then try to enter a more independent world. Like, that is a very rare exception, what I'm able to do here. What typically is happening is what you're seeing here. You're going to work really hard, go to college, get a job at one of these studios, and then you are consumed by the corporate beast that doesn't know shit about the industry. And instead of actually picking projects that have a chance to succeed based on the talent of their employees and what they were, by the way, the school of trade of which they learned. Like, if you've studied single player open world design, that doesn't suddenly translate to multiplayer loot-based live service. It's just not how it works, man. But how could I expect WB to know that? How could I expect them to know that when they're probably going to try to turn the Batman 2 into a Gunverse Justice League contributor? Like, how do I ever expect them to figure that stuff out? You know, again, they need to get out. They need to go and start licensing this out. Okay, this isn't about fewer, bigger releases. This is about finding the right partner. Those are the words I, as a consumer, want to hear. This is about finding the right partner and letting them cook, and you just get to sit there, watch, and fucking bankroll the thing, bro. That's all you're good for. You're a fucking checkbook. Because clearly when you get involved in the creative side of things, as indicated by Multiverses, you are nothing but a masterclass in creating fucking disasters. So why do you think you need to be involved any further? You've shut down 2 excellent studios. One which had one game come out and had a mega hit. I don't think any other industry would really have that happen. What more could you ask for from player first games, really? What more could you ask from them? All right, I'm not trying to deify these games. I'm not acting like Multiverses didn't have its issues, but what more could you ask for in game 1? What kind of standards are we setting for ourselves that mega hits aren't enough? What more kind of standard can you set for yourself than Monolith, who's remained relevant since 94 when they were first created and went on to make Middle-earth games that were like generational for people? What more can you ask for? Especially when these games sold well, were very popular, was talent to build off of, provided systems that would be shared. Hey, Rocksteady made this free flow system. You'd see it in the Mad Max game. You'd see it in something like Shadow of Mordor and more. Hey, you have this new Nemesis system. Share that technology with other studios. It's like these companies were moving things forward for you, bro. What more could they have done? But no, let's go make a Game of Thrones game in like 2028. I'm sure there's going to be tremendous interest for that if George R.R. Martin ever finishes the fucking series. The other thing is primarily Batman, by the way. So one thing we covered in a recent report on WB Games is that they canceled a Flash video game. And they were like, yeah, clearly running scared from the fact that the movie bombed, as reported. Not considering the fact that, like, the actor lost his fucking mind leading into the release of the movie and kind of made it unappealing for people to even check it out. That didn't play a factor. Or that the movie was actually just not good. It was just that, no, like, Flash doesn't work for people nowadays. Like, imagine having that level of, like, blanket thoughts. Like, no nuance. That's gotta suck, bro. And so now, as much as I love Batman, I think there's room to explore the Bat family. Although I think Gotham Knights missed the mark on that. Okay, I can get down with that. But does that mean no Superman game? No Flash game? Like, the amount of DC heroes that could be explored, but they're playing it so safe now. It's just so fucking sad, man. It really is. I'm so upset about this, clearly. But just also, it's like, what frustrates me more than anything is stupidity. That's the God's honest truth. You want to get to know me? That is something that will always and forever piss me off. Is like, you idiots. This was so fucking avoidable. This is so fucking avoidable. All right, well, that's it. I got it all off my chest. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts down below. I'll catch you in the next one. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.